Welcome to Crimepedia. Hope you're having a good week. My name's Cherry. I'm your host this week, and with me, as always, is the lovely Morgan.
Hey, you changed it up this week.
I thought I'd mix it up a bit.
It was nice. I like that. That was nice. Hope you're having a good week.
I am. Yeah, not too bad. So this week's case, we've got a new case for you this week. And this is not one this is one that's been going for quite a while, actually. And since 1996, and it's still unsolved. So how about we get straight into this one?
Let's do it.
On the 8th of June 1996, Melanie Hall and her boyfriend Philip Kurlbaum were on a night out with friends. Melanie ended up leaving that night out with a complete stranger and was never seen again. This is Crimepedia, and this is the case of Melanie Hall. Okay, Morgan, so Melanie Hall was born on the 20th of August 1970 to her parents Pat and Stephen Hall. Now, Stephen's normally known as Steve. She had graduated from the University of Bath in 1995, and she graduated in psychology and was intending to go and take her PhD. Now, she lived with her parents in Bradford-on-Avon, and she had a sister called Dominique. In 1996, Melanie was she was 25 at that time, and she worked as a clerical officer at Bath's Royal United Hospital. Now, her mum also worked there, and she had taken a year off after the university course that she had done, and her mum found her a job for the interim while she was there. She had started a relationship with one of the doctors in the hospital, and this was a guy called Philip Kurlbaum. And she was planning to move into her own place. He had his own place. She obviously lived with her parents, and she was planning to move into her own place in the coming weeks. So they weren't planning to move in together. It was a relatively new relationship, but they were getting on really well. She was described as vibrant, fun, quite outgoing. She was a petite girl. She was quite petite. She had very, very short, I would almost say, like a Backstreet Boy haircut. It was kind of like short at the top and then shaved up at the back. So it's kind of like curtains, what we would call curtains here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really short haircut, like a boyish haircut.
Not quite pixie, but yeah, I
not quite pixie.
It was very a mid '90s haircut.
Yeah, very.
You know, yeah.
It's a typical '90s haircut. She had a big smile, like one of those smiles that lights up your whole face. She was a really nice, lovely looking girl. And her mum said she had lots and lots of plans to do things, and she had lots of life in her. She was getting on really well with Philip, and he said that they had a great time together. They did lots of things like evenings out together, lunches together. They generally went to the theatre, and they went to the pictures and stuff, and generally got on really, really well. Now, on Saturday, the 8th of June in 1996, she had arranged to stay over at Philip's house. So her mum dropped her off. And that night, Melanie and Philip started their evening out with friends at a barbecue. They then had the barbecue with a few people, and then just a couple of them decided to go off to a nightclub in Walcott Street in Bath. And the nightclub was called Cadillacs. If you look this up on a map, it's not actually there anymore. The building's still there, but it's not a nightclub anymore. It's been closed down now. And it was quite a I would say the place to be in town. It was quite a busy club. There was always a lot of people in there. It was the place to go. Now, on their night out, there was Philip and Melanie, and then another couple. So they went out as a foursome. Philip said that he went into the toilets at the club, and when he came out, Melanie was on the dance floor dancing with another man. And he was a bit taken aback with this because there'd never been anything like this before in their relationship. And he said he couldn't really believe that she was dancing with this guy. And this is his quote in a rather intimate fashion. So I'm not sure whether that was like a bit of grinding or what that was really. But
Probably
apparently,
typical nightclub dancing, I would guess.
yeah. Well, it
You
pissed him
know?
off. He wasn't very happy
Oh,
about
yeah.
this. And he said he was really disappointed. He was upset and disappointed, didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
So he left the club and went and sat in the car. And he says that he did this to try and get some sort of reaction from her. He wanted her to like follow him out,
Okay, yeah. Okay.
which she didn't. So she carried on.
Oh.
And he just got more and more pissed off whilst he was sat out there thinking about what was going on. He smoked a cigarette, waited for her. There was no
Uh-huh.
sign of her. So he thought, right, sod this. And he left. So he drove the car home and left her in the
Okay.
club. So inside the club, at around 1:10, the couple that were with Philip and Melanie were obviously unaware that Philip had left. So they then went and found Melanie and said, look, we're going to leave because we're tired. We've had enough. So we'll see you later. So she said, yeah, no problem. That's fine. She said goodbye and then she'd see them at work on Monday. So they've obviously left thinking that Philip is in the club somewhere, not knowing that he's left and Melanie's going to have to get herself home.
And Melanie hasn't said anything about Philip leaving.
No. And I'm not 100% sure she was aware that he'd actually left because she was in the club quite happy. So I don't know whether she thinks he was, I don't know, in the toilet or something. So I
Oh,
think there's
because
something a bit more in between this.
okay, so she sounds like she just not even aware that he saw her and that he's upset at this
Exactly.
point.
Yeah.
Okay.
She hasn't said anything about that. So I'm wondering whether well, the thing is, what if you're dancing and your partner goes off to the toilet and doesn't come back,
You would go, "Hey, what's
you would
going on?
go,
Where
oh,
did
hang on, I
he
haven't seen
go?"
him for ages. Where is he? So surely you'd sort of look for him. And if he wasn't there, surely you'd be a bit like, well, hang on, where's he gone?
Do we know what time this was when he left and went to go sit in the car
No,
by chance?
we only know that the last time that she was seen by her friends was at 1:10. So I don't know how long he's
Okay.
been gone. So it could have been relatively close, in which case she might not
Yeah,
have
like,
noticed.
what if it was 15 minutes or something? Or, I think
Exactly.
that's a lot different. So if it was like 11 PM when
Yeah.
he sees this, and then we're talking
Yeah.
2 hours and 10 minutes later and she still hasn't seen him, yeah, I think
That would
that's
be
a
weird.
completely different situation.
Yeah. So a man inside the club was talking to the door staff in like the foyer area, and he reported seeing a woman matching Melanie's description talking to a man in the foyer. Now, she was wearing, it was kind of like a high neck, pale blue silk dress. It was quite fitted, and it had like a slit in the top to allow your sort of neck to move. You know, it wasn't a tight round the neck one. It had this like cut in the front so that you could move your neck around. And she had black suede mules. So they weren't really, really high. They just had the strap across the front. They were open toe. And she was sat talking to this guy. Now, the guy that she was talking to was described as about 5'10", in his late 20s. He had a dark tanned complexion with dark brown or black hair. He had bushy eyebrows, clean shaven, wearing black trousers and a brown silk shirt. Now, the guy also said that he was wearing quite a flashy watch and possibly had a gold hoop in his ear. So, got quite a really good description
Okay,
of this
yeah.
guy. And a short while later, he saw them leave the club together. So, Melanie's left with this guy. There were two ladies who had just left a fast food shop just along the road from the club, and they reported roughly about the same time, they reported seeing a man and a woman matching Melanie and the guy inside the club's description, arguing outside the church hall. Now, they said now at this point, he was wearing a dark bomber style jacket and she was wearing a cream single breasted long sleeve jacket. And she had like a satchel type handbag over her shoulder.
Okay.
So they've obviously
Alright.
got their coats and left. The women said that they believed that they were having a bit of a lover's tiff, and they commented between them that the guy was giving the woman a pretty hard time. But at the same time as this reporting, I'm not too sure on the timings of these two, because
Yeah.
at the same time, just up the road, I think it was a taxi driver had reported that he had seen a woman matching Melanie's description and clothing being coaxed into a car. And the man that she was with matched this guy's description. So I'm wondering if it wasn't exactly the same time. It was just after, maybe, if they'd had a bit of a to-do
Okay.
outside. And then perhaps he's like, well, come on, let's just get in the car. Possibly.
Possibly.
So we're
Yeah.
not sure for definite whether this was Melanie and him, but it's a bit of a coincidence that they're both dressed the same.
Yeah. It's weird to me to think that two people that just met at a nightclub would already be having what witnesses would be describing as a lover's tiff, you know?
Did they just meet, or was it somebody she already knew?
Oh.
So she could have met up, she could have seen somebody, perhaps somebody that she worked with or she knew of from where, but she worked in a hospital. There's a lot of staff in a hospital. So perhaps she saw somebody she recognized, got chatting, and then she was like, well, I've looked, he's not here. My boyfriend's not here. And he's like, oh, that's all right. I'll give you a lift. Maybe. So she
Maybe.
seems quite
Yeah.
familiar with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So could be somebody that she
Possibly.
perhaps already knew.
All right.
Now, Melanie didn't get home. She didn't go back to Philip's, and
Okay.
she didn't go home to her parents' house. Now, obviously, her mum and dad think she's staying at Philip's that night, so they're not
Yeah.
expecting her home. So on the 11th of June, when she failed to turn up to work on the Monday, her mum was quite concerned because Philip didn't know where she was. Her mum and dad didn't know where she was, and it was really unlike her not to be in touch with her parents. And her mum wrote her a note and left it in the house, thinking that when, okay, if she comes back, she'll see my note and and the note was left untouched in the house. So Melanie didn't make it home
Oh.
at all. Now, Philip
Oh.
described
Okay.
his devastation at her disappearance on the 17th of June. So she went missing the night of the 8th. And on the 17th, I think he did an interview and he said that he was absolutely devastated that where she was and he wished he hadn't have left. Avon and Somerset police launched lots of searches of the River Avon, which is quite close to where she was last seen. And they interviewed thousands of people. There was thousands of people interviewed and taxi drivers, clubbers, door staff in the area in shops, and a £10,000 reward was offered for information. Now, Crime Watch, remember we did the Jill Dando case?
Yes.
Jill Dando was actually presenting Crime Watch at the time that Melanie
Oh.
disappeared.
Okay.
So she actually was
Mhm.
part of that show. They both made appeals, Crime Watch and Crime Stoppers, both made appeals to the public for information. There was no trace at all, no trace of her. Now, a week after she disappeared, a couple were walking along the Kennet and Avon Canal. And they were walking towards Bath in the evening and they overheard a couple arguing on a dark blue narrowboat. Now, this narrowboat, they could see in the window because the lights were on and it was obviously dark. And it had like a beige interior and there were a couple, they think in about their late 20s. And the woman was really angry and she was shouting at the man. And obviously, walking along canal, it's quite quiet. There's not a lot of,
Yeah.
things going on. And they could hear this woman shouting. And she shouted and said, if nothing happened with Melanie, why do you look like such a guilty man?
Oh.
Now, the couple thought nothing of it at the time because they didn't know that Melanie had gone missing at this time. But then subsequently, after hearing about it on the news and everything, it suddenly dawned on them, what if she was talking about Melanie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this canal boat has never been traced, and these people have never come forward, despite the police, asking for their information. Nothing's ever been found about this. And the police are sort of skeptical about whether this is actually a red herring or whether this is something that's credible.
Well, let me ask you about these canal boats.
Mm-hmm.
Are they typically docked in the same location?
No. So they kind of move about. I
Mhm.
think there are places that you can dock them, but I think generally it's a quick stop, if I'm correct. I'm not really sort of right up there on the know-how of canal boats, but as far as I
Yeah.
know, they kind of just, plod along.
Now, are they something that would be that someone would be hiring, or would they be like personal owned,
You can hire
or
them. Yeah, you can. Obviously,
but
people
I'm so
live on
I'm
them.
yeah, because I'm wondering if this was. It kind of sounds like this wouldn't be one that's hired. I don't
Mm,
know. I'm trying to because I would think that if there are two people arguing on a canal boat,
mm.
I'm just trying to picture and if this is like, oh, I guess it wasn't reported right away.
No, it was reported a short time after. So it wasn't. It was about a week after.
Okay. So yeah, maybe then it'll be difficult to track that actual
Yeah.
boat
But I
down.
thought along the
Okay.
same lines as you actually, because I thought if somebody was just traveling through the area, if it was somebody that had hired it and was stopped off, it would be a bit coincidental that it was right by where Melanie had gone missing from, right by the town where
Mhm.
she'd gone missing from, if it
Yeah.
was somebody that was just passing through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I see what you mean. I'm wondering whether this is somebody who lives on a canal boat. But also don't think that there's anywhere that you have to like sign in. So it's not as if you can say, oh, when we stopped off at here, you have to sign the book to say, like when we did the Appalachian Trail where you have to sign in
Yeah.
when you stop. I mean, like here, I don't think
Mhm.
there's anywhere you have to actually sign in or say that you're passing through or anything like that. So I think it'd be quite difficult unless it was hired. It would be quite difficult. I mean, I don't know. Do they have to have MOTs, those boats?
I
How
don't
would you
know.
trace an owner of a boat that you can only say is dark blue? And it was dark, so it might not have been dark
Mm.
blue.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
don't know.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, that kinda makes me, and then especially because of time of day, it almost makes me think that it was someone's personal,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
agree.
canal boat, and
Mm.
they were either they had stopped off somewhere
Mm.
or they actually lived on it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't there when the police went down to see it. It wasn't there when the couple told them where they'd seen it. So it must have moved on, obviously, from then. So
Okay.
not sure. Now, Melanie was declared legally dead on the 17th of November 2004. The case, I wouldn't say it went cold because I think the police have been ticking this over in the background for since she went missing. Um, and obviously, there was no sign of her whatsoever. Her mum and dad did a Crime Watch appeal and they spoke to Crime Watch and described her. And they did a reconstruction of the night that Melanie went out. They also had Philip talking. He was talking on there as well. So he sort of explained what happened. And on the 5th of October 2009, this is 13 years later, a motorway worker found a plastic bin bag containing bones whilst he was clearing a vegetation patch on a slip road at junction 14 of the M5 motorway. Now, this is near Thornbury in South Gloucestershire, which is about 34 miles away from the club where Melanie was last seen. And this is a slip road going on to the M5 motorway. Now, the bones in the bag included a skull, a pelvis,
Okay.
a
Mhm.
thigh bone, and then further remains were found buried and spread around the field by the side of the motorway.
Okay.
Mm. Now, police confirmed that the remains were human and they showed a piece of jewelry. It's a ring, and I've got the picture. I'll put it on our Instagram. There was a ring that they found in with the body parts, and they showed that to Melanie's mum and dad. And unfortunately, they confirmed that it had belonged to Melanie.
Oh, no.
Now, despite this, police refused to actually confirm that the body was Melanie's until they'd carried out a post mortem. They wanted to make sure for definite. I mean, obviously, you have to, don't you? Because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
could just be that the person that stole that ring from Melanie died and then that's them.
Mhm.
So they carried out the post mortem and the remains were formally identified as being Melanie's through dental records on the 7th of October. So now we know we've got Melanie. She had incurred severe blunt trauma to her head, resulting in a fractured skull, fractured cheekbone, and jaw. I mean, they don't know for definite what actually killed her. They don't know how she died, but they can say for certain that she did have blunt force trauma to her head, her cheek, and her jaw. Now, she'd also been tied up with a blue rope. Like the remains inside the bags had been tied with this blue rope, and I'll talk to you bit more about the rope in a second. Um,
Okay.
on the 8th of October, Melanie's parents launched an appeal, a new appeal, for anyone with information to come forward. And Avon and Somerset CID, a guy called DS Mike Britton, said that he was staying on after his retirement to continue working on her disappearance. What?
Just 1 second. That is the most, like, British name possible, right?
Mike Britton.
Mike Britton. Like, is there someone here that's named I'm Mike America?
Hello, Mr. America. Yeah, DS Mike Britton. Well, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. He stayed on after his retirement because he'd been working on this disappearance for 13 years. And he was due to
Oh wow, yeah,
retire
yeah.
and said that he's staying on until they can get it sorted. Now, her disappearance was codenamed Operation Denmark. And on the 29th of October 2009, police announced that there were 3 keys to a Ford vehicle. Now, they think possibly a Transit, a Fiesta, or an Escort. And these had been found near the body,
Okay.
and they were working with Ford to try and identify the vehicle. So 3 keys. It doesn't say whether it's the same. I'm guessing it's for the same vehicle, but they say that there were 3 keys, and it's either a Ford Transit, a Ford Fiesta, or a Ford Escort that they belong to.
And I'm assuming they're on like a key ring or something together.
They didn't say. It doesn't. They haven't actually described them. They just say that they've got these keys. So I'm wondering, are they on a bunch of keys?
Oh, I
And they're
found a
not
picture. No,
disclosing that. So
it doesn't look like it. I found a
no.
picture.
Oh, have you found the picture?
Yeah, I just put in look up Melanie Hall keys, and it looks like they're all together. But it's
Really?
weird. It looks like they're almost. It doesn't look like they're on a. I don't see a what you consider a typical key ring.
Okay.
Here's look it up real quick and see
Oh, I've got it. Yeah.
see what you think. I don't know. Doesn't that almost look like a?
Oh.
It almost looks like
Okay.
it's not. It looks like a zip tie, but it's not. You see that little piece of like
Yeah.
rectangle?
The weird thing is, my dad used to own a garage, like
Yeah.
like a fix-em-up garage, and we used to put tags on the keys like that with the
Yeah.
registration number of the vehicle,
Oh.
so that when they were hung up on the
Yeah.
board, you knew which key was for which vehicle. And we used
Yeah.
to have small tags just like that. And my first car was a Ford, and my key was exactly like that. And I had a Fiesta. I had a Ford
Hmm.
Fiesta. That was my very first car.
They are I'm gonna say they're the same for the same car.
It looks like it.
So the 2 black ones are both Ford, obviously.
Yeah,
But then you can see the red one and the black one. I bet you the red one is like
like a spare.
a spare. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, to be honest, they are pretty standard keys. That's exactly what mine
Mhm.
look like. So they are pretty standard keys.
That is a weird like the
Yeah,
key
that's
is
weird.
weird to me. It looks
Is
weird
it?
to me.
Does it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because ours, it looks like a screwdriver.
I suppose, yeah, it does. It does look like a flat end screwdriver. Yeah, it does.
I mean, yeah, compared to what like an American key would look like.
Okay. Yeah,
Our keys look
interesting.
different.
Yeah, that's really interesting that so basically I'll describe them to you if just so that you know. There's 2 black Fiesta keys, or they look like Fiesta keys. They're sort of black plastic tabs, and then you've got does look like the flat end of a screwdriver that comes out the end.
Mhm.
But then you've also got a red key, and they're very muddy, very dirty. You've got a red key that's the same as this, the bottom's the same as the others, but the top is it's a red plastic tab on the top. And it looks like they've been buried in dirt of some sort. I'm guessing in the field. Now, Crime Watch also launched a fresh appeal for information, and this resulted in over 200 phone calls from the public. So there was a lot. There
Okay.
was a lot
Yeah.
of interest, and the reward for information also was up to now 10,000. They had put a £10,000. Oh no, sorry, 20,000. It started at 10 and it went
20.
up to 20,000. So they put it up again.
Okay.
Now I know that her mum and dad had put up a £50,000 reward for finding out any information to lead to finding her killer at the beginning when they first found her body. In October 2013, police again came out with more information and said that they'd found a white Volkswagen Golf car was connected to their inquiries. They had had some information that it was linked with Cardiff, which is interesting. They've not really said much more. They've just said they think it's a white Golf GTI and they believe it's a significant line of inquiry and has been linked to the Pentwyn area of Cardiff.
Okay. That's strange. Okay.
And that's all we really know about the white car.
I wonder if there had to have been someone that I don't know. How do you get?
Someone's come forward with something, haven't they?
They had to have,
Mm.
but how do you get? I don't know. How do you get a white car and you get an actual city that it's linked to? That's what's
Mm.
strange.
So I would think that they've got a number plate of some sort, and that's how they know it's linked to that area, maybe, or they know whose car it is, and they've linked that person. Maybe I'm guessing that's how they've done it, because you wouldn't just from the make of a car, you wouldn't, like you say, get the certain city that it's linked to.
Yeah, and that would mean too that okay, since that's a Volkswagen, then these keys aren't linked to
No,
that car. Then
no.
okay.
Interesting. It is interesting. Now, also, they had received information about the rope that was used to tie up Melanie's body. On the 25th of November 2013, it was reported that a 44-year-old man had been arrested in Bath on suspicion of murder.
Okay.
Now, I don't have any details of who this guy is. He was released on bail until the 19th of December, and a property at Round Hill Park was searched. There was insufficient evidence, though, to charge him.
Was this done by the Garda?
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to release any information. Just the
Yeah,
Garda.
this is another Garda case. They
Oh
released.
my god.
I
Okay.
couldn't find the digit, but then I suppose if he's been released, there's no reason to mention who he is, I guess.
I suppose. Yeah.
But on the 23rd of June 2016, a 45-year-old man was arrested following retrieval of DNA from where Melanie's remains were discovered. And he was released on bail a few days later.
So that could have been anything.
Could have
Right?
been, yeah. He could have just been in the air having a
He could
wee.
have tossed or he tossed a can from his car and
Yeah.
it landed close to where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the bags were.
So he was released on bail and nothing ever came of that either. By October 2019, so we're talking recently, 11 arrests have been made during their investigation.
11.
But no one's ever been charged.
11.
Yeah. We're not just talking like one or two, it's 11 arrests.
Are they just just arresting whoever?
There seems to be a bit, there's information. Now, the information still keeps trickling through because in October 2019, police came forward and said that they'd obtained this partial DNA profile from the rope that was wrapped around the bag containing Melanie's remains.
I was going to ask you about that because if there was any sort of DNA from the bags, it'd probably be the rope.
Yeah. Because you would have tied it, wouldn't you? The skin cells would have come off. Unless you wore gloves, obviously. Now, DCI James, I think he's called Riccio. It's RICCIO. So I'm guessing Riccio.
Okay.
He is of Avon and Somerset Police, said that we are confirming DNA traces were found on a blue polypropylene. Yes, it came out right. Polypropylene.
There you go.
I did that about 10 times before I actually said it. So there was DNA traces found on this blue polypropylene rope, which was wrapped around black bin liners, which had contained Melanie's body. But the weird thing is, and I've got the picture for you to go up onto Instagram and onto our Facebook. The rope wasn't a single length piece of rope. It was 4 separate pieces all knotted together. And the rope was quite dirty and there were 7 knots. So it was 3 joining the lengths together and then there were 4 extra ones. And he said the number of knots was very strange. He didn't understand why there were 7 knots on it. There didn't really need to be the extra knots.
Wait a second. What type of rope was it again?
Polypropylene. And I can tell you what it's used for. Well, he said it's commonly used on building sites and for drawing electrical cable through trunking. So it's the sort of rope you would tie around a bit of electrical cable to pull it through the trunking. And if you look at the picture of the rope, you can see it's that really it looks like the thin plasticky. Do you know, like if you cut it, it would fray. All the bits come undone like a plait, like a hair plait. It's that kind of plasticky, weird rope.
I would look at it as nautical rope. I would see that as some sort of nautical rope. Yeah. Something that you would use to tie a
boat to the canal.
Dock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, look, your mind is just like mine. And if you look at the picture, the knots aren't exactly like, they're not specialized knots. They're just look it just looks like the rope has got knotted up. You know, like sometimes if you take the dog for a walk and you've got one of those expandable leashes,
Yeah.
sometimes you get little knots in it where like the dog's got caught up and your arms have gone through, and mine always seems to end up in lots of knots. And this looks like, to me, certain bits of it are twining the rope together to make it longer, but there are just
Yeah.
random knots. They're just random ones.
Hmm.
And I wonder if
Oh
that's a
yeah,
rope that's
definitely.
used quite a bit. Could it be that it is something that's used to maybe tether a boat to a side of a canal?
Okay, because this is what's strange. You look at the amount of rope
Mm,
that's on there.
mm,
It's a lot of rope. So it's not like they had to tie a very some really small pieces together to make a long rope.
mm,
This rope was long to begin with.
mm,
I mean, I can't. It's without it, like with measurements. It's
mm.
hard to say. So it's like
Yeah.
I don't understand what those knots are truly for.
No, and that's what the DCI said. He said that it's very strange. The number of knots is very
Uh,
intriguing. He can't explain why there's 7 knots. All the knots there don't make sense.
yeah, and
So
it's
could
not
that
like
be
they
something?
are. And it's not like they are perfectly spaced out either. You
No,
can tell they're not.
no. So they're not in any specific kind of, they're not in a pattern either.
Mhm.
So, like you say, they're not in a specific pattern. Now, the detectives believe that the body was left in haste in the undergrowth close to the junction. Now, it's junction 14. It's a northbound slip road of the M5. And they believe the remains were left there on the morning of the 9th of June or within a few days of that date. Now, this area is about 30 miles northwest of Bath. And I looked at this and it was like, well, okay, so do they mean that the body was left there the 9th of June, as in the day after she went missing? Or is this previously? Because I mean, we're talking like 13 years in between when she went missing and when her body was found. So I'm thinking if it was the 9th of June and the body parts were wrapped in plastic, I'm guessing the body parts were actual body parts at the time, not just bones, and they were discarded in haste in this undergrowth. And if you look at the crime scene photos, you can see that it's kind of like they think that the person had driven onto the northbound M5 motorway, either onto the next junction, they've gone off, and they think they might have turned off at Michael Wood's services and left via a small road to head back into the southerly direction. It's a really weird place to dump a body. It's highly likely that the person who left the body there was familiar with the area.
Okay, so real quick, I was trying to figure this out because you sent me some pictures to look at of the police,
Yeah,
investigating this area,
yeah,
searching the area, and so I have to like get this in my head because I'm thinking U.S. highways. So of course we drive on the other side.
of course, yeah.
So they had to have. To me, it looks like they kind of, yeah, exactly what you said. So they were on the M5 heading north.
Mm,
Almost to me, it looks like they would have gotten off at that junction
yeah.
14, went across the overpass, then back
Back
on,
down. Yeah.
back down. So I think, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I see that.
Okay, so if you can see from like the aerial view as well, where they're looking, where they find the body parts, it's a really dense, like, oh, it's not a forest, but there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of brush, there's a lot of thick foliage. You can't
Yeah,
see aerially, you can't see through to the floor. You can only see trees.
yep.
And directly behind that big, thick set of trees, there is a huge field. And there were parts, like we said, of her body found scattered around in that field where the keys were found.
Okay,
So
okay.
not only were they in that brush bit, they were also, I'm guessing they weren't scattered the whole width of the field because the field is huge. It's a massive, great big
Mm,
field.
I'm wondering if because there is like a wood fence there that
Mm,
blocks off that little that that treed area,
Yeah.
that tree and shrub area. There's a wood fence there. I'm wondering if they just happened to just toss the bags over, or did they actually jump it and they dumped them in different parts of that field?
Okay, now I was thinking about this, and I'm sure it's exactly the same for you over there as it is for us. The slip roads tend to be a road that you just you pass, you just go down. There's not the sort of roads that you would park up on. And if somebody was parked up there, it would be something you'd remember seeing if you were in the area at that
Yes.
time.
Yep. Yeah. So
Okay.
we would call a slip road an on ramp here.
Okay.
And typically, when you see a car on the on ramp, usually the car has broken down.
Broken down. Yeah.
So that's the only time you would see a car
Mm.
on parked on the side.
And if you were traveling that road and you then subsequently saw in the papers that somebody had that the bones had been found there,
Yep.
I would wonder if you would remember, oh, do you remember we saw that car that was broken down there?
Hmm.
That was where that car was stopped.
Funny enough,
Possibly?
on the on the Google satellite images, there's
Yeah.
actually a car parked on
It's
that on
there.
ramp. Yeah,
No way.
there
Let me
is.
s Oh my god, and it's a white car.
It is a white car. Isn't that
Okay,
crazy?
that's a bit freaky, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is actually a white car there.
And look what's right in front of it. It almost like looks like there's an area that's been cut out,
Yeah,
which
it's
would
like
allow you to get
steps.
past that foliage in the
Yeah,
trees.
yeah.
That's really weird.
So it is like a set it looks like a set of steps, doesn't it? Going up
Yeah, it
from the
does.
road up into the field.
It
So
does.
I wonder, I
Yeah.
mean, I wonder how you would access that. Oh, there's access at the back of the field. Just looking to see because there is access at the back of the field. You can see, can't you, where the road goes through, and there's animals. Looks like there's animals in that field as well. No, this is 2020. This is 2020 something. I think this Google map is. So this is a long time ago since
Yeah. But I'm sure
anything's
that the
happened there.
fields have probably been there
Yeah,
for some time.
yeah,
And you can tell that some of it there are plowed fields. So
mm,
there are fields that are actually being, you know, tended to.
yeah,
But even this what I'd call it's more like a pasture, I guess, where
yeah.
it's
Like a
not like it's
grazing field. Yeah,
yes, it's not being farmed. But even still, you would still have to have some sort of maintenance to it.
yeah. And this is what makes me wonder if the parts were left there so quickly after she went missing, that means that they lay there untouched for all that time. It's a
I
long
don't know about
time.
that. Ugh.
It's a bit strange, isn't it, that? I find that a bit hard to get my head around, to be honest. And also, if you look from where the field is at the area that we're talking about, the road that goes along the side of that goes on to junction 14 is called the B4509. And you
Yes.
can see that just off of that is a massive farm. So the farmyard is actually close to the surrounding fields. So this is something that I would imagine the farmer is in and out of those fields quite frequently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like it's a sort of a hillside that's left. It's not like a National Trust kind of thing that's just like there for walkers or something. It actually looks like a regularly used field. Um, so I'm wondering if perhaps her remains were found just slightly into that field under the brush rather than all the way around the field.
I was gonna ask you that. I mean,
Mm.
was it actually in the field or was it closer to that wood fence?
Well, they've
Or
just
or is it, like, along that wood fence, but, like, on the other
on the
side,
field
so
side of it. Yeah.
well, not the field side, but, like, the brush side.
Oh, I see.
Like,
Okay.
it would someone had if they parked on the side of that on-ramp
Mm.
and they hopped out, they're gonna walk up a slight incline, like a little hill, and I would tend to believe that they would be more likely to have tossed the bodies where there was, like, foliage and
Mm.
trees
Yeah.
rather than a big open field.
Well, their exact words were the skull, pelvis, and thigh bone and further remains were found buried and spread around the field by the side of the motorway. So that was their exact words
Okay.
buried
If they say
and
field,
spread
then it's
around.
field.
Yeah. So I'm
Buried
guessing
and
it's that field. Looking at the map, and that's what I can sort of
yeah,
deduce.
because you would not if it was actually in, like, the tree line, you would say tree line.
Trees, yeah.
You wouldn't say field.
No,
Interesting.
it is
So,
interesting.
yeah, why wouldn't it be found in, it took 13 years to find?
And the other thing that's interesting is also the detective also said that the person or the people who hid the body might not necessarily be the killer. And subsequently, they have every so often released kind of little updates, and they seem to be pushing this point of, are you keeping a guilty secret on behalf of somebody else? Do you know what happened to her? Were you involved with her disposal but not of her death?
Okay. Okay.
That seems to be something that's it comes up quite a lot in their appeals.
I couldn't imagine someone who was not involved in the case or in the murder just going and happen to find trash bags and going, "Oh man, look at this! I'm gonna go ahead and dump them somewhere else."
No, but if your son came home in a state that he had done something stupid,
Uh huh.
would you then go, okay, let's think about this
Ugh.
and possibly then help him?
I see what you're saying.
Or could it have been somebody whose perhaps husband, boyfriend had
Y-
something to do with this?
y- You would have to be extremely close
Yes, that's what I was
in
thinking.
order.
You would have to have an unbreakable bond to do something like that, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would
Mm.
say so.
So that's why I'm thinking family rather than marriage. But then some people, their marriage is strong like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who knows? So I've got a statement from Melanie's father, Steve.
Okay.
And this is so sad. I'm going to just read you the statement that he put out. So it says, it's now over 23 years since our youngest daughter, Melanie, was murdered, probably on the streets of Bath. Since that time, the Avon and Somerset police have poured endless resources into their attempt to find her killer. Sadly, as yet, this objective remains unfulfilled, although I and my family remain eternally optimistic that eventually they will be successful. In our family, we will forever grieve for and miss our lovely daughter, a young woman whose life stretched before her until that fateful night in June 1996 when her life was so cruelly snatched from her. She's never going to fulfill her life's ambitions, never marry, never have children, and my wife and I will never have another grandchild. Her mother's lasting memory of her youngest daughter is the day she viewed a battered skull and a few broken bones from the coroner's office at Portishead. We've got little hope that Melanie's murderer will ever be caught as a result of information. Also, we have little hope that Melanie's murderer will ever be caught as a result of information from a member of the public. The lives of the person responsible and those others who know what happened that night are governed by a totally different set of rules and moral responsibilities from the rest of us. We're sure that after all these years, they will happily take their awful secret to the grave, and we will do the same with our grief. I take stock, a daughter who's dead, a wife who just stares at the wall, a sister who struggles to get her day together, a 100-year-old grandmother who sits at home with soft memories, and a father who puts it all in a box and tries to shut the lid. So we'll all carry on. For the sake of those in the Avon and Somerset police, I hope they're successful in bringing someone to justice before they have really put up a maximum effort to find Melanie's killer. Unfortunately, should they be successful, this will not bring closure, as only the return of Melanie alive would achieve that, and that is gone forever. That's really sad, isn't it? But again, do you hear what I hear on her dad's?
Mhm. I think he's hinting at something,
Yeah,
and I think he knows who did it.
yeah,
Let me ask you a question. This is gonna
okay,
go back. We're gonna rewind a little bit.
okay,
So when we started this, we talk about the night she went missing.
mm-hmm,
We talk about someone who she was seen with.
mm-hmm,
We get a description of a man in his late 20s that she was seen with after she would have left the club.
yeah.
Would this description match Philip?
That is a very good question. If you have a look at the photo fit, the e-fit, and then just look at the picture that I gave you of Philip, I think there's quite a resemblance between the two there. I think they're quite similar.
Um.
The only difference is the
Oh,
guy that she was
yeah.
with is described as very tanned, Now, I thought when I first saw Philip, he did look quite tanned. I'm guessing Philip's German. I'm thinking he's of German descent. He's not like an Italian kind of dark hair, that kind of thing. He doesn't look that kind of way. And this guy was described as having bushy eyebrows, a brown silk shirt, which I don't know if that's what Philip was wearing that night, but I
Uh-huh.
guess he might have been cleared by the friends, because if he was wearing a brown silk shirt, then hello. But obviously he was out with the other couple. So I would imagine it's not him from that. I would think he's been cleared from that. But that's needless to
Yeah.
say that the guy she was arguing with outside wasn't Philip, because
Oh, yeah,
by this
yeah.
point, the guy only had dark trousers on and a bomber jacket. So there's no mention of this brown shirt then. So
Mhm.
could it have been that she left the club, Philip had come back, saw
Or
her
he
with this guy leaving,
Mhm.
and then had an altercation with her then?
Or did he actually leave? Did
Oh,
he
yeah, I
actually
don't know.
leave?
Mm. There's
Now to
not a
ask you
lot reported. There's not a lot reported about Philip and
Uh-huh.
his whereabouts after, and has he been cleared 100% by the police. I didn't see a lot about him, if I'm honest, in all the reports that I read.
Mhm. And I mean, he has to be a suspect
Of course, he's the
without a
spouse.
doubt,
Yeah.
or the boyfriend,
And he was
right?
pissed off with her as well.
He was angry.
Yeah.
So what if he was angry enough and that blunt force trauma, because it sounds like, there was damage to the jaw,
Mm.
what the side of her face, the cheek,
That's
and
right. The
top of the
cheek
head?
and her jaw. Yeah.
What if he punched her, right? So that's where that's coming from,
Mm.
and he didn't mean to. I mean, he loses control, punches her. Something happens to her. She falls down and hits her head, is unconscious, or whatever it might be.
Mm.
He freaks out and then decides he has to get rid of the body.
And he's a doctor.
He's a doctor. Killing someone will really damage your
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
career as a
Career
doctor.
prospects. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Oh.
Now, police have not ruled out links of Melanie's murder to the murder of the estate agent Susie Lampler, who disappeared in July 1986, and her body's never been found.
So 10
Now,
years before Melanie.
yeah. Now, there was a case of a serial sex attacker in Bath, and this guy was nicknamed the Batman Rapist. He would leave a baseball cap bearing a Batman logo at the scene of one of the attacks, and that was where he was dubbed the Batman Rapist. Now, this assailant he was attempted to carjack a woman at knife point. He then left her wounded, but she fought back and managed to escape. Now, this was in the same area of the city a few hours before Melanie went missing. So somebody already had actually been carjacked at that time, a few hours before Melanie went missing. There's also suggestions that there may be a link. I don't know how this is, but there may be a link between Melanie's murder and Levi Belfield. Now, he's in prison at the moment, serving a whole life order for 3 murders that he committed between 2002 and 2004. And they do believe that Levi Belfield had more victims that they don't know about. Now, if you don't know about Levi Belfield, he is the guy that is the subject of Colin Sutton's book Manhunt, which we actually did for CrimeCon UK's first book club. It was the first book that we read. And his MO was he would bash people on the head. That's how it would start. He would smack them on the head. And obviously, he killed 3 women, viciously killed 3 women. And it is quite similar to the way he used to do things. But obviously she was then, I'm guessing, mutilated and put into bags. So that wasn't so much a Levi Belfield kind of thing. There was another link between the convicted killer Christopher Halliwell. Now, he's also serving a life sentence with a whole life order for the murders of Sean O'Callaghan and Becky Godden Edwards. But they said that they've ruled him out, because that was the suggested link to start with, that it was Christopher Halliwell, but they've actually ruled him out. But Levi Belfield hasn't been ruled out, and neither is the connection between Susie Lampler's murder and this Batman rapist, because obviously he tried already earlier that same night.
Now, did Belfield did he dispose of bodies in a similar fashion?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
No. But that's not,
So
but the like the lone female and the smacking on the head and the,
yeah.
those kind of things. He was he was a horrible man. And
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
think they've just, to be fair, I think they're just clutching it. I mean, we're talking Bath. Belfield was from nowhere near Bath. He was London.
yeah.
So I just think they're just trying to find similarities. Could it have been him? That kind of thing.
He seems like the type of person that any unsolved crime from
Yeah.
this time period, they're gonna
Yeah.
try to link to him.
Definitely, especially because of the blunt force trauma to the head. I think that's what immediately does it there. So I think that's why. So October 2020, the police renewed the appeal and issued this e-fit, the one that I've got for you. That's the better
Mhm.
e-fit of the two. The first one was actually like a sketch, and it was you could tell it was a very old style e-fit, and it didn't really look like anything, to be honest. It just looked like a sketch. But the second one, the one that we put on our socials, that's a better looking e-fit of him. So now the police have appealed for information on the death of Melanie Hall many, many times. And the latest one, they have come up with some questions that they're asking people to think about. Now, they're asking, did you see any suspicious activity or a vehicle parked on the northbound Junction 14 slip road of the M5 at Thornbury in the early hours of Sunday, the 9th of June, 1996, or the days immediately after? So they're pretty certain it's within a couple of days after the 9th of June. Now, they're also asking, were you in Cadillac's nightclub that night? It was the evening where England drew 1-1 with Switzerland in the opening game of the football Euro 96 championships. So there's probably a lot of people out and about. The force also want to know, are you concerned about a change in the behaviour of a friend or a relative? Or is there anyone showing particular interest in this inquiry?
Okay.
Interesting. They also said, are you concerned about where Melanie's clothing may be? Now, we know that her dress is missing. Her dress was a pale blue silk dress. It had a round neck. Her shoes are missing. So she was wearing black suede mule shoes with straps, and he had an open toe, and they were about a 5 or a 6. That's the size that she used to wear. Her jacket's missing. So like we said, it was a single-breasted cream long sleeve jacket. Her handbag was missing, which was a black satchel type handbag. Now, in the handbag, she had cosmetics, a Midland checkbook, and a bank card. And she was missing jewelry. She was missing a next watch and an expanding bracelet. So it was
Mhm.
I guess it's like a watch bracelet kind of thing she was missing.
Okay.
And she was missing silver drop earrings. I've got pictures of those for you to look at. So her earrings are missing as well, which is interesting.
But they found the ring with her.
They found the ring. But the rest of that is all missing. So her earrings are gone, but they've got her skull, obviously, Her clothes are all missing. Her shoes are missing. Her handbag's missing. Her checkbook, her card, all missing. Her watch is missing. So I'm guessing they've missed the ring.
How do you miss the ring?
I don't know. Could it have fallen off in the bag whilst they were, or could they have not realised she had it on? If they're panicking?
Possibly.
They've taken the time to get rid of all that stuff.
Which means you don't want her identified.
Mm.
Why? I mean, if you are Belfield or whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why does it matter if she's identified or not?
I don't understand why everything is gone from her. She's wrapped in bags and disposed of. Why take everything off? Why remove it all? I don't really understand that.
It's not a robbery.
No.
It's we don't want her to be. We want
identified
her
straight
to
away.
be. Yeah. Exactly. And so why wouldn't you want her to be?
Strange,
I think
isn't
because you don't want to be linked to it. You don't want her to be found, so you don't ultimately get linked to her death.
So her clothing,
I think it's someone she knows.
I agree.
I think it's someone she knows.
I agree with you. I believe it's somebody that she knows, and I believe they had help. I don't believe it was one person on their own. I believe that they had help for this. Mm-hmm. Now, As well as the £50,000 reward for Melanie's parents, the independent charity Crime Stoppers also offered a reward of up to £10,000 for information leading to her arrest and the conviction of anybody responsible. If you have any information, if there's anything you can think of, then the police are asking that you can contact them. You can contact the Avon police. You can also contact Crime Stoppers direct. And you can pass on any information completely anonymously and they can't trace your call. So if somebody knows something, which they do, let's face it, there's somebody other than the person that killed her that knows something about this, you can do it anonymously. You can say something without any fear of anything coming back on you at all. And so far, there's been nothing further that the police have had to work on or have had to come forward. So we are still none the wiser on the murder of Melanie Hall.
Crazy.
And I've watched her mum and dad. There are lots of videos on YouTube and on the internet of her mum and dad's appeals that they've done. And you can see the effect that this has had on them from the first video that her mum did way back when she first went missing, when she didn't know that she was dead by then. We're talking like a couple of days after she went missing. The very first video, if you watch them in chronological order, you can see on their faces, it's awful. And it's just, I don't understand how somebody can keep this inside. And I just don't understand how somebody can know what's happened and not come forward with information unless the person that you're going to be giving information on is somebody who's very important to you and that you wouldn't want to give up because they are of, that much importance to you. I wouldn't have said this was a husband. I don't think this would be a husband and wife thing.
No, I don't see that.
I think this is more like a brother, sister, brother, mother,
Dad,
father, son. This isn't, this is just from what I'm reading and reading between the lines of the things the police are saying and reading between the lines of what the family are saying. This sounds to me like the person who's done it has confessed to somebody and they've helped them get rid of her body. And they're not going to give that person up because it's a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I do think Melanie knew this person.
I think so. I think they knew the person. I think the person probably lost their temper at something, lost control, attacked her, went too far.
Yeah.
Melanie ended up dying.
Yeah.
And then they're calling someone that's very, really close to them, saying, "Hey, this is what happened. It was an accident. We have to do something about this.
Yeah.
What do I do?" Yeah.
I don't think this is the work of a serial killer.
I don't either. No.
But we will see. Hopefully we'll be able to give you an update soon and see if anything else has happened in this case. The police have been relentless so far and they're not giving it up. So I'm hoping that all their hard work is going to pay off and that Melanie's family will get an answer. Melanie's mum said she knows obviously that she's not going to get her daughter back. She just wants to know how it happened and why it happened. That's all she wants to know. She just wants to know how and she wants to know why.
Insane.
It is. And so that is this week's case, the case of
Very
Melanie
good.
Hall.
Thank you very much for that.
No problem. So, yes, if you think you know what happened or you would like to give your opinion on what we've said and what you think, you can always go and see our socials. You can leave us messages. You can comment on this week's episodes. We'll put up all of the pictures as well. And if you want to be really nice, and we know that you do, you can also go and give us a massive, great big 5-star review, please, because that will help our podcast a lot. It will help us a lot.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, Sherry, how about we get the captain out of the box?
Shall I get him out? Hang on. Come on. Out you come. It's this week's Dumb Criminal.
Hey, Captain Stupid Poopy Pants. You's a dummy.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Go back and forth. All right, Sherry. So I have it's an older case.
Yeah.
but it's a good one. So this actually was from 2013. So
Oh, back in the day.
back in the day, but this is excellent. Okay, so Cherry, there are a few things that you should never, ever do while you're drunk, okay?
Okay.
Number 1, you shouldn't drive, okay?
Definitely not.
Number 2, update your Facebook status.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, never do that. Number 3, update your Facebook status to admit that you've been driving drunk.
Oh, dear.
No. And number 4, you should never add a sarcastic, facetious emoticon to your Facebook status.
Oh, dear.
But for 18-year-old Jacob Cox Brown, he decided to do all 4.
Oh, no.
In the least unsurprising bit of information, this led to his arrest. Now, 2 of his Facebook friends contacted the Astoria police in Oregon after seeing their friend's status update. Now, this prompted police officials to go to his house.
Oh.
There, they found a vehicle that matched damage that had been done to 2 vehicles in a hit-and-run accident earlier that morning.
Oh, my God.
And they arrested the 18-year-old, charging him with 2 counts of failing to perform the duties of a driver.
Good.
All right. Now, how did Jacob decide to respond?
He pleaded and begged.
Well, first off, he went on to KATU TV and said, "The people who called me out, they're obviously not my friends, you know?
What?
True friends, like I said, they know me. They know I'm a sarcastic ass. They laughed about it. They posted shit like that on there. And it's never blown up like this." Well,
Oh,
Jacob,
no.
use a dummy,
He's a big fat dummy.
and you are our dumb criminal of the week.
You're the dumb criminal of the year by the sounds of things. What
Oh
an
my God.
arse. Stupid
he
boy.
So he writes, his Facebook status was driving drunk, classic, winky face, but to whoever's vehicle I hit, I'm sorry, sticking your tongue out emojicon.
Oh, what a loser. I'm so glad that his friends dobbed him in. Because otherwise,
Well,
those poor people wouldn't have known that some idiot drunk driving has smashed their car.
But obviously, they're not really his friends, you know?
Obviously not, because you know he's just a bit sarcastic.
Oh my God.
What an idiot. He's a loser.
Not only that, he was 18, he was underage too. So you're underage, you're drunk, you're driving, you're posting status updates, you are admitting to crimes. Oh, you deserve it.
You are Crimepedia's
Jacob Cox Brown.
Dick of the Year. We're going to give you a little crown and everything, you absolute loser.
Loser. There you go.
Thank you very much. So yes, thank you very much for joining us this week. We will be back with a bonus episode. We'll give you an update on that very shortly.
You will.
Actually, we've got more than one bonus episode.
We
got
have 2
couple of bonus episodes coming up. So look out for that. We will give you more information when we've got it. And for now, be nice.
And bye.
That was long.